The Awakening. The emergency lights flickered erratically as Zane McCall made his way through the dimly lit corridors of the abandoned space station known as the Orion's Edge. Sweat glistened on his brow from the heat generated by the malfunctioning systems. He had been sent here on what was supposed to be a routine maintenance job, but had stumbled upon something much more intriguing, a distress signal echoing through the cold metal walls. "This is Zane." He spoke into his communicator, his voice steady despite the eerie silence surrounding him. "I'm approaching the source of the signal. No signs of life yet." The static crackled in response but offered no comfort. He tightened his grip on the plasma wrench hanging from his belt as he rounded a corner. The station had been abandoned for years, its once bustling halls now filled with shadows and whispers of the past. As he moved deeper into the station, Zane heard it, a soft, whimpering sound that sent chills down his spine. Instinctively, he reached for his plasma pistol. Distress signals often led to ambushes in this part of space, yet something about this sound felt different, genuine. "Hello," he called out cautiously. "Please, help me," came a weak voice from around the corner. Zane hesitated only for a moment before stepping forward. Rounding the corner, he found her, an alien woman with striking blue skin and long silver hair cascading down her back like liquid moonlight. She was slumped against the wall, her breath shallow and labored. "I'm Nissa," she managed between gasps, her violet eyes locked onto his with an intensity that made Zane's heart race. "I need blood." He recognized her kind, vampires known as Thaurians, who had once been feared across galaxies for their predatory nature, but had since integrated into intergalactic society under strict ethical codes regarding feeding. "You're dying," Zane stated flatly as he assessed her condition. "Yes," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I was trapped here. Pirates. They left me." Zane felt a surge of compassion mixed with caution. He had heard stories of Thaurians who could manipulate emotions and create bonds through feeding. Stories that often ended badly for humans involved. Yet here was this woman before him, vulnerable and desperate. "Take what you need," he said suddenly, kneeling beside her despite the warning bells ringing in his mind. Nissa's eyes widened in disbelief as she searched his face for any sign of deceit. "Are you sure?" Instead of answering verbally, Zane tilted his head slightly to expose his neck, a gesture that surprised even him. Her cool fingers brushed against his skin as she traced his pulse point before sinking her fangs into him. The sensation was unlike anything Zane had ever experienced. Pain mingled with an intoxicating warmth that spread through him like wildfire. As she fed, he felt an overwhelming rush of emotions flood into him. Her fear, desperation, but also something deeper, a longing that resonated within him. When she finally pulled away, her eyes glowed with newfound vitality. "Thank you," she breathed out softly, wiping the drop of blood from her lips with an elegance that captivated him. "Is human blood different?" Zane asked half-jokingly as he tried to regain his composure. "It's intoxicating," she replied breathlessly before suddenly clutching her stomach in distress. "Oh no, something's happening." Zane's heart raced as he watched her struggle against an unseen force within her. "What's wrong?" "Your blood," she gasped as if trying to comprehend what was unfolding inside her. "It's creating something. I've never felt anything like this." The air between them thickened with an electric tension as their connection deepened unexpectedly, a psychic bond igniting between them like a supernova illuminating the dark void of space. "This is extraordinary," Nissa murmured in awe as she leaned closer to him. "I can feel everything you're feeling." Zane leaned back against the cold wall of the corridor as waves of warmth enveloped him, her emotions intertwining with his own in ways he couldn't fully grasp yet instinctively understood were significant. "Is this normal?" he asked cautiously. "No," she admitted softly but with wonder in her voice. "We can form temporary connections during feeding. But this is something else entirely. As they shared this moment of vulnerability and connection amidst chaos and uncertainty, Zane couldn't shake off the feeling that their lives were about to change forever, a notion that both excited and terrified him in equal measure. The station's emergency lights flickered ominously overhead, as if sensing the shift in their fates. Zane glanced at Nissa again. Her beauty was striking even in distress, a fierce determination shining through those violet eyes that now held more than just hunger. They held promise. But before they could explore this new connection further or understand its implications fully, distant sounds echoed down the corridor, the unmistakable sound of boots marching toward them. "They're coming," Nissa whispered urgently as fear flashed across her features once more. Zane stood up straight, adrenaline surging through him as he prepared for whatever lay ahead, his instincts kicking in from years spent navigating danger across galaxies. "We need to move." As they fled deeper into the shadows of Orion's edge together, two unlikely allies bound by fate, their journey was just beginning, one filled with perilous encounters and unexpected revelations that would test not only their strength, but also the very essence of who they were destined to become together amidst stars that twinkled like promises waiting to be fulfilled in the vastness of space. The connection. The dim lights of the Orion's edge flickered as Zane and Nissa navigated the labyrinthine corridors, their hearts racing from the adrenaline of their escape. The distant sounds of boots echoed ominously behind them, a constant reminder that danger was still lurking in the shadows. Zane's mind raced with thoughts of survival, but he couldn't shake the feeling that their connection was something extraordinary, a bond forged in blood and desperation. "We need to find a safe place to regroup," Zane said, glancing over his shoulder. "Do you have somewhere in mind?" Nissa nodded, her violet eyes shimmering with determination. "There's a hidden lair on a nearby moon, a place where I can recover and we can plan our next move." "Lead the way," he replied, his trust in her growing despite the uncertainty of their situation. As they made their way to the hangar bay, Zane couldn't help but feel the weight of their shared experience. He had offered his blood, and in return, he had awakened something within Nissa, something powerful and profound. He could sense her emotions through their bond, a mixture of gratitude and an underlying fear of what lay ahead. When they reached the hangar bay, Zane quickly activated his ship's systems. "This ship is old but reliable," he said, running his fingers over the controls. "We should be able to make it to the moon without any issues." "Let's hope so," Nissa replied, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. As they launched into space, Zane stole glances at Nissa. Her beauty was mesmerizing. Her blue skin glowed softly in the dim light of the cockpit. He felt an overwhelming urge to protect her, to ensure she was safe from whatever threats awaited them. "What do you know about the pirates?" Zane asked as they entered hyperspace. "They're part of a larger group known as the Crimson Harvesters," she explained. "They've been hunting Thaurians for years, studying our feeding patterns and trying to exploit our weaknesses." "And what do they want with you?" Zane pressed. "I'm not just any Thalarian," she said, her voice tinged with bitterness. "I'm an outcast, a rogue who defied their laws. They want to capture me to learn about my abilities and how I'd survived outside their control." Zane felt a surge of anger at the thought of anyone wanting to harm her. "They won't get you," he vowed, gripping the controls tighter. As they approached the moon's surface, Nissa guided him toward a secluded area hidden by dense vegetation. Once landed, they disembarked and made their way into a concealed entrance that led into a cavernous lair. The interior was surprisingly warm and inviting, illuminated by bioluminescent plants that thrived in the darkness. Zane marveled at the beauty around him, while Nissa took a moment to catch her breath. "This place is incredible," he said, looking around. "How did you find it?" "It was once a refuge for Thaurians like me," Nissa replied. "A sanctuary away from those who would exploit us." As they settled into their new surroundings, Zane felt an undeniable pull toward Nissa, the bond between them thrumming with energy. He could sense her emotions shifting from fear to relief as she began to relax. "I can feel your strength," she said softly, meeting his gaze. "Your blood has awakened something within me, something I didn't know existed." Zane took a step closer, intrigued by her words. "What do you mean?" "I've always been strong for a Thalarian," she explained, her voice barely above a whisper. "But now, it's different. Your blood has given me an intensity that feels almost limitless." He could feel her excitement through their connection, a warmth that spread through him like wildfire. "What else can you do?" he asked curiously. Nissa smiled mischievously, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "I have talents beyond just feeding on blood." She stepped closer, her presence intoxicating as she leaned in slightly. "Would you like me to show you?" The air between them thickened with unspoken tension as Zane's heart raced at her invitation. "Yes," he breathed out before he could stop himself. Nissa moved closer still until there was barely any space between them. She reached up and traced his jawline with delicate fingers, sending shivers down his spine. Through their bond, he felt her desire mirrored in his own, a primal urge that transcended words. "This connection is unlike anything I've ever experienced," she murmured as she leaned in closer. Zane could feel her heartbeat quickening through their bond, a rhythm that matched his own racing pulse. "What are we?" he asked quietly. "We're more than just human and Thalarian," she replied softly. "We're connected in ways that go beyond our species." As she spoke those words, Zane felt an overwhelming sense of belonging wash over him, a feeling that this bond was meant to be forged amidst chaos and uncertainty. But just as they were about to explore this newfound intimacy further, a sudden noise shattered the moment. An echoing crash reverberated through the lair. Nissa stiffened immediately. Fear coursed through their bond like ice water. "They found us." Zane's instincts kicked in as adrenaline surged through him once more. "We need to hide," he urged urgently. They quickly moved deeper into the lair, finding refuge behind a cluster of bioluminescent plants that provided some cover from prying eyes. Zane could hear voices approaching, rough and menacing, growing louder with each passing moment. "Search every corner," one voice barked angrily. "We know she's here." Nissa's grip tightened on his arm as they crouched low behind the plants, hearts pounding in sync with each other's fear and determination. "What do we do?" Zane whispered urgently. "If they find us," Nissa began but couldn't finish her thought. Terror flickered across her features. "They won't find us," Zane assured her fiercely. "Not if I have anything to say about it." Through their bond, he felt her gratitude mixed with fear, an emotional cocktail that fueled his resolve even further. He would protect her at all costs. There was no question about it. As footsteps echoed closer, Zane scanned their surroundings for anything that could be used as a weapon or distraction. His eyes landed on an old maintenance tool lying forgotten on a nearby table, a plasma cutter that could serve as both offense and defense if needed. With deliberate care not to make any noise, he reached for it while keeping an eye on Nissa, her expression one of fierce determination despite her fear. The voices grew louder until finally one of them came into view, a rugged pirate clad in dark armor scanning the area with predatory eyes. "She has to be here somewhere," he growled impatiently as he stepped further into their hiding place. Zane held his breath as he gripped the plasma cutter tightly, ready for whatever came next. But then something unexpected happened. Nissa surged forward suddenly with an unexpected ferocity that took him by surprise. She stepped out from behind their cover like a predator unleashed, her blue skin shimmering under the bioluminescent glow as she faced down the pirate who had just entered their sanctuary. The pirate's eyes widened in shock before confusion morphed into recognition, and then fear, as Nissa unleashed her abilities fully for the first time since they had met. Zane watched in awe as she moved with grace and power, every motion fluid yet precise, as if choreographed by instinct alone, the very essence of what it meant to be Thalarian coming alive before him. With swift strikes and agile movements enhanced by their psychic connection, Nissa dispatched the pirate effortlessly. each blow resonating through Zane like thunder, his heart racing at witnessing this side of her strength firsthand. When it was over and silence fell once more around them, Nyssa stood over the fallen pirate, panting slightly, but radiating confidence and power unlike anything Zane had ever seen before. Through their bond, he felt her exhilaration mixed with pride, emotions swirling together like galaxies colliding within him. And suddenly, everything shifted again, their connection deepening further than either had anticipated amidst chaos unfolding around them. "Let's move," Zane urged breathlessly after taking a moment to process what had just happened. Realizing how much danger still lurked outside this sanctuary, despite witnessing Nyssa's incredible display of power firsthand, and knowing there were more pirates out there waiting for them both. The hunters. The atmosphere in the lair was thick with tension as Zane and Nyssa crouched behind the bioluminescent plants, their hearts pounding in unison. The pirates were closing in, their footsteps echoing ominously through the cavern. Zane could feel Nyssa's fear coursing through their bond, a stark contrast to the exhilaration he had felt moments before when she had showcased her strength. Now, the reality of their situation loomed over them like a dark cloud. "We need to find a way out of here," Zane whispered urgently, scanning the area for an escape route. "If they catch us, it'll be over." Nyssa nodded, her eyes narrowing as she focused on the voices approaching. "We can't let them discover what my blood has done. If they learn about our bond, they'll exploit it. Then we'll make sure they don't find out," Zane replied, determination hardening his resolve. "We'll fight if we have to." As the pirates drew closer, Zane's mind raced with strategies. He had faced many enemies in his time, but this was different. He was not just fighting for his own life. He was fighting for Nyssa and their newfound connection, a bond that had changed everything for both of them. "There's a maintenance shaft nearby," Nyssa said suddenly, her voice low but steady. "If we can reach it, we might be able to slip away unnoticed." "Lead the way," Zane urged, ready to follow her lead. They moved silently through the shadows, ducking behind crates and equipment as they made their way toward the maintenance shaft. Zane could feel Nyssa's tension. Her emotions were a whirlwind of fear and determination that resonated within him. He wanted to reassure her, to tell her that everything would be all right, but he knew that words alone wouldn't suffice in this moment. As they approached the entrance to the maintenance shaft, Zane caught sight of two pirates standing guard just outside. They were clad in sleek combat suits, their eyes scanning the area with predatory precision. Zane's heart raced. They were outnumbered and outgunned. "We need a distraction," he whispered to Nyssa. She nodded thoughtfully before a determined glint sparked in her eyes. "I can create a diversion," she said quietly. "But you need to trust me." "Always," he replied without hesitation. With that, Nyssa slipped away from him, moving like a shadow through the dim light of the lair. Zane watched as she approached the pirates with an air of confidence that both amazed and terrified him. She was playing a dangerous game, one that could easily backfire. "Hey," one of the pirates shouted as he noticed her presence. "What are you doing here?" Nyssa smiled seductively, her violet eyes sparkling with mischief. "Just looking for some fun," she purred, her voice dripping with ardor. The pirates exchanged glances, clearly intrigued but suspicious. Zane held his breath as he watched Nyssa weave her way closer to them, using every ounce of her charm to distract them from their mission. "You boys look like you could use some entertainment," she continued, stepping closer until she was almost within reach. The first pirate grinned, clearly taken by her beauty. "What do you have in mind?" Before they could react further, Nyssa unleashed her abilities, her movements swift and graceful as she struck with precision. Zane felt a rush of adrenaline flood through him as he saw her take down one pirate effortlessly while dodging the other's grasp. "Now!" she shouted as she dispatched the second pirate with a quick kick to his midsection. Zane wasted no time. He rushed toward her side as they moved into the maintenance shaft together. Adrenaline surged through him as they navigated the tight space, every sound amplified in the silence around them. "That was incredible," Zane exclaimed breathlessly as they crawled through the narrow passageway. Nissa smiled at him, a mixture of pride and exhilaration lighting up her features. I couldn't let them catch us. They emerged from the shaft into another section of the station, a dimly lit corridor lined with old machinery and equipment long forgotten by time. Zane quickly scanned their surroundings for any signs of danger before turning his attention back to Nissa. "Where do we go from here?" he asked. "There should be an emergency exit nearby," she replied, glancing around nervously. "But we need to move fast before they regroup." They hurried down the corridor, moving cautiously but purposefully as they searched for an exit. Zane could feel their bond thrumming between them, a reminder of what they were fighting for and how much they had already overcome together. As they reached a door marked with an emergency exit sign, Zane paused for a moment to catch his breath. "We're going to make it," he said firmly, looking into Nissa's eyes. "I believe you," she replied softly, her gaze filled with trust and determination. Just as Zane reached for the door handle, an alarm blared throughout the station, a deafening sound that sent both of them jumping back in surprise. "They know we're here," Zane shouted over the noise. "We have to go now," Nissa urged urgently. He yanked open the door, and they burst through into a small landing bay where his ship awaited them, the stellar shadow gleaming under emergency lights like a beacon of hope amidst chaos. "Get us out of here," Nissa called as they rushed toward the ship's entrance. Zane quickly activated the ship's systems, while Nissa secured their surroundings, her heightened senses alerting them to any potential threats lurking nearby. As soon as they were aboard, Zane slammed his hand on the control panel and initiated takeoff sequences. The ship shuddered slightly as it lifted off from its landing pad. Zane felt a rush of relief wash over him as they broke free from the confines of Orion's Edge and soared into open space. "We did it," he exclaimed triumphantly as they entered hyperspace, safe for now from their pursuers. Nissa collapsed into one of the seats beside him, breathing heavily but smiling despite everything that had just happened. That was too close. Zane couldn't help but chuckle at her expression. Her fierce determination mixed with exhilaration made his heart swell with admiration for her strength and resilience. "You were amazing back there," he said sincerely, glancing at her with newfound respect. Her smile widened at his praise. Through their bond, he felt waves of warmth radiating from her, a mix of pride and affection that deepened their connection further still. "Thank you," she replied softly, "but we can't let our guard down yet." As if on cue, an alert flashed on their control panel, a warning indicating that another ship had entered their vicinity, one that matched the description of Commander Jarek's bounty hunter fleet, known for tracking down Thaurians across galaxies. "They found us," Zane muttered grimly as he tightened his grip on the controls. Nissa's expression hardened. Determination ignited within those violet eyes once more. "Then we'll show them what we're made of." Together they prepared for battle, two souls intertwined by fate ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead against those who sought to tear them apart. The betrayal. The stellar shadow drifted through the vastness of space, its sleek form gliding silently as Zane and Nissa processed the whirlwind of events that had unfolded. They had escaped the clutches of the Crimson Harvesters, but the victory felt bittersweet. The bond they shared had grown stronger, yet it also brought with it a host of new challenges that neither of them fully understood. "What's next?" Zane asked, his gaze fixed on the stars outside the viewport. He could feel Nissa's presence beside him, her emotions a complex tapestry of excitement and apprehension that resonated through their connection. "We need to find a safe place to regroup," Nissa replied, her voice steady despite the uncertainty that hung in the air. "But we also have to figure out what this bond means for us. And for our future," Zane added, glancing at her. He felt a surge of protectiveness wash over him as he thought about the implications of their connection, the potential for something more than just survival. "I can feel your thoughts," Nissa said softly, her violet eyes meeting his with an intensity that made his heart race. "And yes, it's true. We're connected in ways that go beyond anything I've ever experienced." As they continued their journey through hyperspace, Zane couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. His instincts told him that danger was still lurking nearby, and he was determined to protect Nyssa at all costs. "Let's check the communications," he suggested, turning to the control panel. "Maybe we can find out more about what's happening in the galaxy." Nyssa nodded, her expression serious as she focused on the console. "I'll tap into the bounty hunter networks and see if there are any updates on the Crimson Harvesters." As she worked, Zane felt a wave of warmth wash over him, a reminder of their bond and how much it had changed both of them. He had never expected to form such a deep connection with someone like Nyssa, but now it felt like an integral part of his existence. "There's been a lot of chatter about us," Nyssa said suddenly, her voice tense. "The bounty hunters are on high alert, and there are rumors about a new player in the game. The Sanguine Syndicate." "The Sanguine Syndicate," Zane repeated, frowning. "What do they want with us?" "They're known for their ruthless tactics and obsession with vampire species," she explained. "If they learn about our bond and what your blood has done for me, they'll come after us," Zane finished grimly. Just then, an alert flashed on the control panel, an incoming transmission from an unknown source. Zane exchanged a wary glance with Nyssa before hitting accept. The screen flickered to life, revealing a figure cloaked in shadows, a woman with piercing red eyes and an aura of authority that sent chills down Zane's spine. "I am Commander Jarek," she announced, her voice smooth yet commanding. "Leader of the Sanguine Syndicate. We've been watching you." Zane's heart raced as he instinctively moved to position himself between Nyssa and the screen. "What do you want?" he demanded. "To offer you a deal," Jarek replied, her lips curling into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We know about your bond, about what your blood has awakened in Nyssa." Nyssa stiffened beside him. Zane could feel her fear radiating through their connection. "We're not interested in any deals," he said firmly. "Oh, but you should be," Jarek continued, unfazed by his defiance. "Your connection is unprecedented. A human and Valerian creating life together. It could change everything for our kind." Zane felt a surge of anger at her words. She was treating their bond like some kind of experiment, rather than acknowledging its significance. "We're not your pawns," he spat. Jarek's expression hardened slightly. "You misunderstand me. I'm offering you protection from those who would seek to exploit you, like the Crimson Harvesters." Nyssa leaned closer to Zane, her voice barely above a whisper. "She's right about one thing. We need protection. But at what cost?" Zane countered, his instincts screaming at him to be cautious. Jarek leaned forward slightly, her gaze piercing through the screen as if she could read his thoughts. "The Sanguine Syndicate has resources and connections that can keep you safe. We can help you understand your bond, help you harness its power." Zane hesitated, torn between his protective instincts and the reality of their situation. They were vulnerable. Every moment spent hiding only increased their risk of being found. "What do you want in return?" he asked cautiously. "Simple," Jarek replied smoothly. "You allow us to study your bond, your unique connection, and in exchange, we ensure your safety from any threats." Nyssa's eyes widened in alarm as she processed Jarek's proposition. Through their bond, Zane felt her fear mingling with curiosity, a dangerous combination that made him uneasy. "We'll think about it," Zane said finally, trying to keep his tone neutral. Jarek smiled again, a predatory gleam in her eyes that made Zane's skin crawl. "I'll give you time to consider my offer. But remember, time is not on your side." With that, she cut off the transmission, leaving them in silence as they processed what had just happened. "What do we do now?" Nyssa asked quietly. Zane took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their situation pressing down on him like a heavy cloak. "We need to discuss this, together." They moved to a small table in the ship's cabin, where they could talk privately without distractions from the outside world. As they sat across from each other, Zane reached for Nyssa's hand, his touch grounding them both amidst uncertainty. "I don't trust Jarek Or the Sanguine Syndicate, he admitted honestly. But we can't ignore the fact that we need help. Nyssa nodded slowly, her expression contemplative as she considered their options. If we refuse them outright, we risk drawing attention from even more dangerous factions, like the Crimson Harvesters or worse. Zane felt her anxiety through their bond. It mirrored his own fears about what lay ahead for them both, and for their child growing within her. But if we accept their offer, he began but trailed off as uncertainty gnawed at him. It could lead us down a path we're not ready for, Nyssa finished for him softly. He squeezed her hand tighter. He wanted nothing more than to protect her from any harm. But he also knew they couldn't run forever without consequences catching up with them eventually. Let's take some time to think this through, Zane suggested finally. We'll monitor communications and see if anything changes before making any decisions. As they sat together in silence, hands entwined, the weight of their choices hung heavily between them, like an impending storm threatening to break at any moment. The new dawn. The stellar shadow glided through the vastness of space, the hum of its engines a comforting backdrop to the whirlwind of emotions swirling within Zane and Nyssa. They had faced unimaginable dangers together, and now, with the offer from the Crimson Queen hanging in the air, they stood at crossroads that could redefine their lives and the fate of both their species. We can't ignore this opportunity, Nyssa said, her violet eyes gleaming with determination as she leaned closer to Zane. If we accept her offer, we could secure a future for our child, a future where we're not hunted but celebrated. Zane felt her excitement through their bond, a potent mix of hope and ambition that ignited something deep within him. But what if it's a trap? He countered, his protective instincts flaring up once more. The Sanguine Syndicate has a reputation for being ruthless. So do the Crimson Harvesters, she replied, her voice steady. We've already seen what they're capable of. This could be our chance to turn the tide in our favor. He considered her words carefully, weighing the risks against the potential rewards. Through their connection, he could feel her unwavering faith in their bond, the strength it had given her, and by extension, him. It was intoxicating and terrifying all at once. If we do this, Zane said slowly, we need to be prepared for anything. We can't let our guard down. Nyssa nodded, her expression serious. Agreed. But we also need to embrace what this means for us, what it means for our child. The thought of their child sent a wave of warmth through their bond, a reminder of the life they were creating together, a life that defied all odds. Zane reached out to cup Nyssa's face in his hand, feeling the coolness of her skin against his palm. Whatever happens, he vowed softly, we'll face it together. As they prepared to respond to the Crimson Queen's offer, Zane felt a surge of determination coursing through him. They were no longer just a human and an alien vampire. They were something new, something powerful that could change the course of their destinies. The next few hours passed in a blur as they navigated through hyperspace toward the Sanguine Syndicate's homeworld, a place steeped in mystery and power. Zane sat at the controls while Nyssa monitored communications channels, her focus unwavering. We're approaching the coordinates, she announced after a while, her voice laced with anticipation. Let's hope this goes smoothly, Zane replied, glancing at her with a mixture of admiration and concern. As they broke through hyperspace and entered orbit around a sprawling planet bathed in crimson light, Zane felt his heart race at the sight before them. Towering spires jutted into the sky, like fangs ready to pierce the heavens. It was both beautiful and intimidating. Welcome to Sanguinara, Nyssa said softly, awe evident in her tone. It's incredible, Zane breathed out as he took in the breathtaking view. But beneath his awe lay an undercurrent of anxiety. This was uncharted territory for both of them. They landed smoothly on a designated platform surrounded by armed guards clad in dark armor. As they disembarked from the stellar shadow, Zane instinctively positioned himself protectively beside Nyssa. A figure stepped forward, a tall woman with flowing dark hair and piercing red eyes that seemed to see right through him. She radiated authority and power, Zane knew immediately that this was the Crimson Queen herself. "I am Queen Callista," she announced, her voice smooth yet commanding. "You are here because you possess something extraordinary, a bond that transcends our understanding." Nyssa stepped forward slightly, her confidence shining through despite the tension in the air. "We want to understand what this means for us, for our child." Queen Callista regarded them both with an intensity that made Zane's skin prickle. "Your child is unlike any other, born from two worlds that have long been at odds. You hold within you the potential to bridge those divides." Zane exchanged a glance with Nyssa. He could feel her excitement mingling with apprehension through their bond. "What do you propose?" he asked cautiously. "I propose an alliance," Callista replied, her gaze unwavering. "In exchange for your cooperation and understanding of this unique bond, we will offer you protection from those who seek to harm you. Protection from both the Crimson Harvesters and others who may wish to exploit your child's existence." Nyssa stepped closer to Zane, intertwining their fingers as she spoke up again. "And what does that entail?" "You will undergo a series of evaluations, tests that will help us understand your connection better," Callista explained. "But rest assured, you will not be harmed during this process." Zane felt Nyssa's unease ripple through their bond. He shared her concern, but also recognized the necessity of understanding their situation fully. "And if we refuse?" he asked firmly. Callista's expression hardened slightly. "Then you risk becoming targets once more, both for those who would seek to capture your child and for those who fear what you represent." The weight of her words hung heavy in the air as Zane considered their options once more. He glanced at Nyssa. He could feel her resolve strengthening even amidst uncertainty. "We accept your proposal," he said finally, determination settling into his bones. Callista nodded approvingly before gesturing for them to follow her deeper into Sanguinara's heart, a place where secrets awaited them and destinies would intertwine in ways neither had anticipated. As they walked through grand halls adorned with ancient artifacts and symbols of power, Zane couldn't shake off the feeling that they were stepping into something much larger than themselves, a web of politics and intrigue woven throughout vampire society. "This is where it begins," Nyssa whispered beside him as they entered a vast chamber filled with other Therians, each one observing them with curiosity and caution. Callista led them to an ornate platform, where she turned to address those gathered around them. "Behold, two beings from different worlds who have created life together, a union that defies tradition and challenges our understanding of bloodlines." Whispers rippled through the crowd. Some faces were filled with awe, while others displayed skepticism or outright hostility. Zane felt Nyssa tense beside him as emotions surged through their bond, their connection amplifying every sensation in ways that left them both vulnerable yet stronger than ever before. "We stand here today, not just for ourselves, but for all who have been marginalized or hunted because of who they are," Callista continued passionately. "Together we can forge a new path forward, one where acceptance reigns over fear." The crowd erupted into murmurs again. Zane could sense divisions forming even among those who should be united by shared heritage or purpose. As Callista continued speaking about unity and understanding between species, her words resonating deeply within him, he realized how far they had come since that fateful day on Orion's edge when he had first offered his blood to save Nyssa. Their journey had transformed them both. Now they stood on the precipice of something monumental, a chance not only for themselves, but also for future generations born from love rather than prejudice or hatred. When Callista finished speaking, she turned back toward them with an expectant gaze. "Are you prepared to embrace this new destiny?" Zane took a deep breath before nodding resolutely alongside Nyssa, their hands still intertwined, as if solidifying their commitment not just to each other, but also to whatever lay ahead.